All right, MA Marignon turned 58, storming a fort with only one set of gems. What could possibly go wrong? We finished research and enchantment. Yeah, we've discussed this research. That's excellent that it's carrying on. Gateway, teleport. Yeah, we've talked about all that. Astral window. I forget where we're spying this turn. We'll have to take a look. Most of our site searching fails, but we do find a Temple of Darkness. I feel like this is a special one, but I don't remember offhand. You might be able to get like shades or shadow soldiers from it. Our blood hunting went awful. I'll have to take a look. Maybe our patrollers are not keeping up with the unrest. And then we have some battles. We get attacked by Phlegra. That's never a good thing. We don't want that, right? This is that group that's raiding around. They chose to raid into the Well of Pestilence province, I think. Which is fine by me, although I don't think it'll really matter. We do have a ton of stuff here, but all of it's garbage. We'll see, maybe we'll be able to get a single kill, or some afflictions maybe, you know. Oh, he's casting sleep, or heal. Oh, that's actually kind of cool. That's, you know, somewhat relevant. Okay, so we managed to get one guy. Maybe we'll get one more. Probably not. Like, yeah, we have routes. Yeah, armies of Marignon are routed. So we do at least manage to kill a giant. Yeah, one giant with a ton of PD. This PD was not here for these guys. You know, you just happened to run into it. Maybe should have sent some mages out. I don't think we really had anybody in range that I wanted to risk. But I may have also forgotten that I'd already invested a bunch of, you know, PD into this province. So that's a bit unfortunate. And then let's take a look at this guy. This is... No, not the other group. So this is on top of the throne. So maybe a gem bait? In which case... Okay, no, he's evacuating his mages, which is unfortunate because we wanted to get rid of these guys so that they can't dispel our global. Like, yeah, this guy right here, prime dispel candidate. So yeah, this will probably not, hopefully not trigger gem usage. I've heard that if you have commanders set to retreat or that have retreat in their scripts, they don't count in terms of the calculation. So, you know, you can't just send a bunch of scary stuff out that's set to retreat to burn gems. So we'll see if we have gems when we assault. And then Agartha, and speaking of raiding, they are, yeah, we've seen this group before. This guy is using these Olms as Soul Vortex batteries, which is interesting. Just a few Bakemono here, and of course the Olms are, you know, especially against like small numbers of stuff. Although I don't know, Bakemono are good thing they don't have very good morale, because if they'd gotten up, you know, they would have been able to chop up this dude in robes, no problem. Maybe you should put him behind. The Olms are probably on bodyguard, yeah. Because there's 5 of them. Hard to say, but it does look like that works out for them, just barely. And then, let's see, this is Asphodel moving forward against Vanheim. Yeah, we've seen this army. I doubt Vanheim has anything to resist. They're probably just have gone into raiding mode wisely and, you know, are preparing some stuff in their forts. Certainly that's what I would be doing in their situation, because, like, yeah, Asphodel is an absolute juggernaut right now. And then, yeah, this is our Witch Hunter. Oh, who's up against a serious PD dump. And this is the other possibility. And, like, this is a good move from Phlegra. Definitely an expensive move, but they may have the gold for it. And I don't think this is going to work out for us. We'll see. We have no gems on this guy either. So, like, yeah, but the fire casting is pretty nasty, right? And we do at least have, like, a couple Knights of the Chalice here, but, like, yeah, there's a lot of arrows, right? Body Ethereal, we've seen how that can fail before. And honestly, this is enough stuff, like, as good as our Knights are. You know, you can see the heavy infantry, right? they're not managing to hold up. And then, like, once they get around and start attacking the square with, like, the Witch Hunter, yeah, and, of course, morale. So there goes. He does at least explode, but it doesn't matter because, you know, casualties you cause to PD just get regenerated. So that doesn't work out, but that's okay. We kind of need to increase, like, buff up our raiding groups anyway. And then this is our secondary army that's moving out, and it looks like this is probably just a retreat. Yeah, not a tyrant. So yeah, we should have no problem with this. And so we're gonna head with this army to Nazca. And then yeah, Shiniyama taking one of the last Jotunheim forts, pinging one of the last Jotunheim forts. but there is not but an Earth Gnome in here. Does he have any kit? No, he does not, which is probably wise. Earth Gnomes are not fantastic, so I think Shiniyama will be able to take that without too much difficulty. And then this is the assault of our main army. So let's see. Yeah, we do still have gems, and probably actually won't spend gems. Because, yeah, there's not a whole lot left in here. Not really sure why I didn't, choose to retreat with these guys. Because, like, yeah, they're decently valuable. Maybe they got, no, they couldn't have gotten recruited this turn because we were sitting on the fort, so we're blocking recruitment. So, yeah. Can't really explain that, but we have no trouble taking that. Hopefully no friendly fire. That's nice. So yeah, this war is going well in terms of the major battles and taking infrastructure, but we've kind of struggled. Well, no, we've definitely struggled. We've kind of failed in the raiding game. Like lately it's been the reverse for me, so this is a bit of an interesting situation. So we'll definitely have to rethink our raiding for the next war, especially since there's a decent chance our next war will be against Asphodel and or Yis, both of whom raid pretty darn well. So yeah, we're really going to have to up our raiding game. And then, of course, speaking of raiding, here are some elves. Ariu attacking Agartha. Of course, this is not a raid. And Ariu, I don't know if I mentioned it, but they have Dark Skies up. Not relevant for us right now, but very, very relevant if we ever choose to attack them. And it just reduces morale when you're in their dominion. And it looks like Agartha chose not to defend this fort, so I don't think Ariu is going to have any problem. A ton of Great Eagles. This is so much siege strength. Probably more than you need in a single stack, although I know that, yeah, I tend to use a lot of Great Eagles as well. And, against Agartha, they definitely can have a lot of siege defense. So perhaps not that crazy. We also didn't get attacked by Abyssia, so I'm not sure where that stack went. That's a bit interesting. And then some unexpected events. Our mage finally managed to get a breakthrough, so we can either, send a diplomat or an army, and I'll have to go read up on the event exactly like how to do either. But from what I recall, it can go good or bad, either way, either option that you take, which is typical for dominions. And then, yeah, some insects eating crops, that's fine. Oh, that's nice. Our tax collectors were magnificent for a season. Change of pace, we get plus 660 gold. Barbarians. This is on top of one of our forts, so yeah, we should probably do a little bit of patrolling to make sure that the barbarians get turned around immediately. And then we lose a scout. This must be the stack of Abyssia, which maybe just chose to hang out and patrol. So not sure about that one. And then, yeah, we finish construction of a fortress, and I think this is for our dog-headed fellows. Yeah. And then the palisade, this is on top of the throne. And then we have breached Abyssia's fort, which is nice, and we're not starving anymore, which is good. Yeah, overall, not so bad. And I will catch you guys after the jump. All right. This is the situation and what we're doing about it. First things first, the Phlegron conflict. So we are moving forward with both of our armies. Our main army is going to move on top of this fort. We've seen this guy. We didn't actually spend any gems, which is nice. So we're going to send him along with our gem reloads. It's nice that we didn't spend any gems because we are pretty low on gems right now of a lot of types. And then our secondary army is also going to be pushing forward towards Nazca, which we can see a fairly substantial defense here. Although a lot of this is just garbage, although there's a decent number of mages in here, this is definitely going to be a more dangerous fight, I suspect. We'll have to see, what kind of research Phlegra has put together and, what kind of spell casting they're going to do, because mostly we've only seen Phlegra use, normal troops with super combatants. So this will kind of be not the first time. I suppose there was a decent mage stack here on the throne, but I think there's going to be more in Nazca. And this will be our weaker army making this attack. I still think it's going to be strong enough, but, we'll see. However, if it is not strong enough, our tertiary army is also moving up, which is pretty light, but has its building mage support, gonna have a lot of siege support. We'll probably split out some of these eagles and send some of them probably to our main army is gonna need help. This is gonna be actually probably not as much siege defense as it looks like, because animals get a pretty significant penalty when providing siege defense. So even though that's a lot of mouflon and they're very strong, they're not going to be as useful on the defense. So we're kind of not given up on raiding. We just we lost most of our raiders and then folded the remainder into our stacks, and yeah, raiding just has not gone well for us. And I think by the time we build up raiders and get, I mean, our raiders are behind our armies now, so, you know, we'll see if we end up needing to take a pause, right? If we have a battle where one of our armies is turned around or takes a lot of casualties, then we may pause for a few turns and bring up some raiders. But we may just focus on, you know, using our armies to go directly after infrastructure and then just clean up afterwards. Speaking of cleanup, we have Xibalba here, who reached out and politely asked for life, which we mostly denied. So, you know, they just kind of wanted to see where we were at. They figured that we were planning on taking them out. I wasn't actually planning. I mean, obviously, I've talked about how Xibalba was going to be one of the targets. I was just expecting it to already be in Phlegra's hands. So they actually were hoping that I was going to lock this fort down, because this is a pretty significant, you know, even though it's not so great for siege defense, that's a lot of siege strength to be sitting right next door to their only fort. So it kind of limits their ability to move out. So they were actually hoping that we would make this move, which we were already planning on doing anyway. And they said they were planning on raiding 26 and just focusing on getting their cap circle back. And I was fine with that. Like, you know, we kind of want to focus more on the north anyway, since I think that's more likely where we're going to have vultures, you know, jumping in. So as much of this territory that we can block off to the north, the better. There is some risk, of course, of Ulm coming in from the other direction, but it kind of looks like they've been rolled back. And then also, I mean, winter isn't going to last that much longer, you know, two turns. I think the passes should be open in spring. So like one more turn of them not being able to move through, because there's quite a few mountain passes here. Well, I guess this leads to Asphodel. Ulm actually doesn't really have much of a border with Phlegra. Now that said, they can take this coastal route during winter, but yeah, we don't really see any more evidence of their attacks. So they've either, you know, gotten what they wanted already, or maybe have been pushed back. So to that end, you know, assuming that we manage to take this fort, our next target will be this throne fort. So, you know, I let Xibalba know that, like, hey, I'm gonna need to move through this province, but otherwise, like, we don't really need Xibalba or their cap circle just yet. And so I told them a nap 3, with the understanding that, you know, once Phlegra's on the way out, I'm gonna cancel it, so it's not gonna last all that long. But in the meantime, you know, we can stay out of each other's way, and then when it comes time to kill him, he can get 3 turns to set up a glorious capital defense, which perhaps is not the wisest move on my part, but I don't know. You know, I feel like what Xibalba has put on, you know, demands something. So that is the majority of the Phlegran conflict. We did scry here. There used to be a significant force in this fort, and it is gone now. So possibly it's in this province, or possibly, you know, that's why Ulm got reversed. But I think there's at least one unaccounted for large Phlegran army, probably 2, because, you know, there was a decent amount of stuff in their capital, if I'm recalling correctly, and, you know, no doubt they've been building more stuff. So we still have a long way to go for this war, and, you know, we'll see about neighbors jumping in. There's a good chance Asphodel knows about this. There's a good chance that Asphodel either already has stuff in position or is moving stuff in position. So it's pretty unlikely that we come away with all of Phlegra. I'm not even sure that I want to come away with all of Phlegra, right? Because we've already talked about how, like, the infrastructure backing this region is not fantastic. So for us to stretch, you know, that deeply and completely envelop, not completely envelop them, assuming that they manage to take out Pelagia, but we'll have a really substantial border with them if we take all of Phlegra. On the other hand, right, there are definitely some other powers that are looking quite large and quite dangerous. So, you know, it's always good to pick up territory just from a pure power standpoint. And then speaking of picking up territory, or in our case, losing it, we still have these Phlegran raiders deep in our territory. And of course, they're headed for the unforted temple. I don't know whether this is just pure chance or like his scouts, you know, detected that this was the one place. I don't even know if this is where he's going. This is a pretty useful province for him to have raided, in the sense that, you know, it connects out to many different provinces. So it's going to be very difficult to predict where these guys go. We are setting up a defense for our temple, so pretty high confidence that we'll be able to hold this. This is also happily barbarian PD type, which is significant. You know, it's not going to be enough to stop these Gigantes, but they will do some damage. And then we combine that with a bunch of Incinerate, which isn't ideal because those Gigantes have some built-in fire resistance, but it's only 5. It's not enough to stop Incinerate. This is a lot of Incinerate. And for good measure, a few great swords of sharpness. Oh yeah, and some Soul Celestial play as well. So probably overkill, actually, now that I'm looking at this. Maybe, I don't know, there's how many giants are here? 7 giants, I don't know. If we can snipe the commander, that would be ideal. I'm not sure what happened with that other raiding force. There's just a single Gigante warrior here that was abandoned, or maybe retreat from, I'm not sure where. But I'm assuming that this raiding force collapsed back into Nazca. We do see that there's a white mage here, and it was a white mage that was leading this raiding group. So I was expecting them to kind of, follow the path here and do more raiding, but I guess he decided to pull back and, add to his defenses. So we will be counter raiding. So we're going to use our kit, right? This is a different Harbinger with more or less the same kit. We ditched the poison resistance because we shouldn't need that in this case. And this is where we bounced, right, to a ton of province defense. So this would be kind of annoying to raid back, but this is exactly what we made this kit for. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully this is just one of the many problems that this kit is going to solve for us in the hands of these Harbingers. And then we do have a knight group in motion who will also, start raiding back provinces, just being led by a witch hunter, pretty normal stuff, some bodyguards. There's a decent chance, right, that these raiders go elsewhere, right? We don't contain them. We are recruiting some troops in this fort to just help hold up the walls. We could patrol, and risk some of our enchantresses, but I would prefer not to, and I don't think it's really necessary, especially because the gem income here, at least, is protected. This is costing us a ton of gems, though, right? Like, this is for, 5 gems from this province, right? And then, okay, I think this is just 1 gem, although that's a lot of gold, and then there's a bunch of gems. So, this rating is definitely significant for us, even though, actually, Phlegra is drawing. Yeah, so this is a nice swing in their direction, and definitely painful for us. But at the end, in the grand scheme of the war, I think, largely irrelevant, especially because we'll be able to easily cut, the income that they've been getting, next turn. Assuming the kit doesn't fail. The kit would never fail. So anyway, that covers the Phlegra situation. Still feeling pretty good about it, but a bit of a wild card in terms of we're going to hit some significant mage balls, and with Phlegra's auto communions, that can get kind of scary. We may have some earthquakes in our future, which I definitely have not adequately prepared for. Fog Warriors is a fairly decent counter to that, but we'll have it coming out turn 2. Then again, with the number of troops that Phlegra has, I don't know, we'll see. In a lot of ways, an earthquake trap might be kind of difficult for Phlegra, but that's definitely a thought. So we may have to rejigger a few things. In terms of our undersea friends, we didn't want to hang out. As far as I know, the Ysian army is still here. We didn't want to hang out there in case they patrolled. So yeah, we're just going to kind of keep our scouts in the area, try to see how much progress Yis has made in other directions, but it doesn't really look like they're going to split out and raid a bunch of places, and it doesn't look like they're moving super fast. So may actually have a bit of time before we have to deal with a Yis that, doesn't have an underwater war to fight. And then as far as the Abyssia situation goes, I was a little confused as to, why this army would just sit here and patrol. I liked this move about threatening this fort, but then it's if you're going to do that, why lose some time? Well, turns out that I have been trying to outthink the AI probably for the last turn or two. So I'm assuming when Abyssia's capital was stormed, the player was like, wow, there's really no point. They are also playing in this game, right? We've talked about that as another nation. So I'm sure they're happy to, wash their hands of these other nations, because it does take time, to do your turns and make your moves. So we shouldn't actually have to worry about anything too crazy, assuming that it's not impossible that, the horror trap was just set up. The AI usually it'll execute whatever plans you have. It won't overwrite existing scripts as far as I know. So there's a little bit of danger in this storm, but yeah, we want to close this out. Still haven't heard back from Man, so a bit of wild card there, and the sooner we can get this fort under our control, the better. We're just going to leave this stuff here. We've already done a little bit of vulturing, but considering we did basically none of the lifting, right, this is already, I'm sure Man is not thrilled about this. If we were to push even deeper, then we'd be more likely to have problems with them, and we don't really need this territory. So that, covers the Abyssius situation. It should be over pretty soon. Of course, this means that our Horror Harmonica Golem is out of position again. So, he's teleporting around. The farthest he can teleport is up to Mictlan here. And from Mictlan, he should be in a pretty good position to drop on something. I'm thinking his first use may actually be to storm this fort. I don't think that Mouflons have very good morale, right? So if we just have our golem sit back and cast Wailing Winds and bring in some horrors, that might be enough, right, to take this fort, which otherwise might be kind of annoying, right, to try to fit. Our armies aren't particularly brilliantly set up for storming forts. Haven't really been faced yet with a really heavily defended fort, a well-defended fort. So we should probably come up with a squad that can storm forts more effectively. But until we do, Horror Harmonica Golem to the rescue. We shall see. So I think that covers the majority of our movements. Oh, the other thing is we're going to take the army in Bandar, the half that we didn't already steal, and we're going to go invade the Hall of the Mountain King. So there's a lot of different ways that this event chain can go, as Dominion's event chains are. It's a fairly complicated one, but I think the army invading, it has the greatest potential it has the potential for greatest rewards. It also means 66 war trolls and 66 trolls, so that could be a little scary. Luckily, trolls have a weakness to fire, and we're Marignon. We're all about fire here. So I think we can take whatever comes out of the halls of the Mountain King, but, we'll see. Recruitment-wise, we just have like a scattering of flagellants here and there. They take longer to bring in, so I like to pump them up in places where I think we might need them in the future, and you really want to do that, I think, ahead of time. More knights in the capital, because, we might need quite a few groups to chase down this mess. And then, of course, I think this is also knight recruitment up here in Mictlan, right? That's the primary source of our power. Siege strength-wise, I think we're in a decent place with our eagles, although we're not likely to get any replacement eagles anytime soon. But still, we should have siege strength more or less covered. So in terms of combat power, we're pretty much looking at our knights. So we're going to focus on knight recruitment. I guess one thing I did forget to mention, this force that was intended to counter-raid, this raid, or what I thought was a raiding force, has raided us a little bit. Backtracked, right, instead of, raiding deeper. So I'm assuming that it's probably going to try to jump on top of this fort, which will be empty, so they might be able to one-turn crack it, and certainly if we left them there, they would crack it. So this might actually be the first thing that our tertiary army does is, just push this off the throne. There's not much here other than the axe warriors, so not too worried about it. There is the possibility they double back and PD dump, which might be a little rough, especially since it's winter and our primary plan is to rely on fire elementals and a little bit of fire evocation. So we'll see how this raid goes, but I think certainly worth a shot. So I think that covers recruitment more or less. We are going back to Grandmasters, at least for a little while. I don't know. I mean, they are useful, I guess. So back and forth on those guys. But this turn, at least, we are getting some. Otherwise, I think we managed to squeak out full mage recruitment, but you can see it's initiates in a lot of places. Other than, we're still, enchantresses, of course, from both of these every turn. And then I think, we switched to Sorcerer of the Sands. I may have forgotten to mention this when we found this site, but we found this Desert of Bones, which is what is allowing recruitment of these guys. So this province is just kind of ridiculous in terms of indie mages. But I didn't really mention it because I didn't think I was going to use them, right? Especially since it's we really want the Garnet Sorceresses, so that's what we're going to be recruiting out of this province. But I took another look at them, and they do have the possibility for air death, which will allow for Wailing Winds outside of our Harmonica fellow. And I do think that is going to be an excellent way to deal with Yis's Sacreds, because other than the fact they have 5 fire resistance, but they'll be able to bring it up to 10 with the battlefield wide buffs, and with it, with the amount of armor that they're likely to have, it could get kind of ugly. And otherwise, they have pretty good elemental resistances. They have poison resistance. I think they have dark vision, maybe even full spirit sight. Basically, they were looking a little on the disgusting side, and like certainly I think we could slog it out if we had enough Knights of the Chalice, but it's not like an ideal way to beat that army. But I was looking at it, and their morale is pretty average. It was like 14, 15 or something. I mean, okay, that's better than average, but as far as elite sacreds go, and as far as Wailing Winds go, that's definitely not enough to survive like that many rounds. So I think having one or two of those Sorcerers of the Sand, I mean, we'll probably have to recruit significantly more than that. Well, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. It depends on how lucky we get, right? We have a 25% chance to get that death. We're guaranteed to have the air, but, to get the air death cross path, 25% chance. So in theory, once we recruit 4 of these guys, we'll have one. In practice, we'll see. The other thing is, we have some blood hunting going, and I'm not really in a position yet. Like, we kind of just have some blood slaves stacking up, and we don't really have that much of an outlet for them yet. So this is probably the moment to recruit a couple of these guys and then go back to the Garnet Sorceresses. Speaking of outlets of blood slaves, the artifact we're forging this turn is the Infernal Sword. And there's nothing particularly great about this other than, it looks fun. Like, I don't think this is a priority, but it's relatively cheap. Actually, it's extremely cheap, right? So just 5 blood slaves and 5 fire gems. And then the extra effect on damage is the person gets banished to Inferno. Now, this does mean that you need to deal damage first, and that can be the problem. But, I mean, it's a two-handed weapon with really nice stats and a lot of damage. And then there's the possibility, of just getting rid of the person. Now, I mean, you can return from Inferno, but it's relatively unlikely, I think. Again, this is, I don't know, I've never forged this. I don't think I've ever actually sent anyone to Inferno. But there's definitely some Asphodel thugs out there that I think are going to be real annoying to deal with. So maybe the Infernal Sword is a good answer. We will find out later, in all likelihood. The main reason for this is we don't quite have the nature gems for our wolf cannon because I spent them. And part of the reason that I spent them is I was planning on putting Eternal Pyre back up. So that is what our Pretender is doing this turn. And I mean, yeah, we've talked about this. I was hoping, right, to eliminate Phlegra's astral component, which we did not do, right, because, let's see, yeah, this was the assault. So they moved out and then retreated. So some of these adepts of the Silver Order may have survived. Now, that said, there was only 2 of them, and they didn't have very many retreat paths. And we do not see an adept of the Silver Order here in a bordering province. And we don't see one here, but there's enough stuff here that they might just get hidden in the scout report. All this to say that Phlegra may still have an astral component and may dispel it. But, it's been a while since it was dispelled before. We've been sitting on this a while, not putting it up. So, I don't know. I feel like let's give it a shot, right? We need to find out, is it Asphodel? I mean, again, it could be Phlegra, but they probably don't have a huge astral income, right? Because they only recently got this throne from Xibalba, and, we just killed off a decent number of the mages that they recruited out of it. So, how much site searching have they really had a chance to do? How much astral income do they really have? I don't know. We'll find out. So anyway, we're casting it for about the same amount that we did before, which is also kind of questionable, but I mean, partially that's just motivated by the fact that it's that's the amount of fire gems that we have right now. So maybe it would be better to sit and, save up more to get, an even more disgusting cast. But again, with the gem generating globals, it's the greater the amount that you put it up for, the deeper in the hole you go. So it's kind of what's the point? The point is to get fire gems from it. So it's if you spend 200 fire gems and then you have to wait, 10 turns or however long to recoup your investment, right, before you actually start seeing any new fire gems, extra fire gems that you wouldn't have already had. I don't know, it just seems kind of pointless. So yeah, I think that covers the majority of the happenings for the turn. Let's just take a look and see if there's anything interesting that I've forgotten about in terms of our scouting. We've seen this fort is cracked. I just don't think, this fort is also sieged. This is probably a thug. And all this stuff, I don't know, man is going to be worried, I think, in both directions, right? I mean, there's definitely reasons to be worried about me. We're a large, powerful nation, and this is relatively close to our capital. So it's we could absolutely push for Abysia. I've been talking about it for a while, right? So, I could totally see how, they're kind of would be concerned about this border, but at the same time, like, you can't ignore something like this. We are starting to reach the part of the game where it's like we really want to have gotten rid of the pop kill nations by now. This is kind of on all of us that we've allowed a pop kill to live this long, because there are ways that pop kill nations can win that or ensure that no living nation will be able to win. Whereas usually like the globals and the things that living nations are doing aren't going to prevent other living nations, from even existing. The main one, of course, being Underdark, which just completely wipes out income like globally. I think it's technically a 90% reduction, but it's crippling. Having once been in a game where a middle-aged Ermor got out of control. So yeah, we might be looking at that situation. Now, thankfully, right, we have the alchemy trick, so fingers crossed that'll keep us afloat, but we're hoping to use that to create even larger, more glorious armies, not just barely eke out, our current level of existence. So yeah, like, I kind of want to let Man, finish the Abyssius situation, and then Alm and I, need to finish the Phlegra situation. So, at that point, I've already kind of talked with Man about Asphodel. I've not broached the subject with Alm yet, but I do think like bringing those two together, for an alliance against Asphodel might be the way to go. But I don't think we're quite there yet. And then I think the only other thing is to take a look at Agartha, who has been doing a pretty good job of raiding stuff back, right? Like Agartha had kind of disappeared in terms of flags on the map. But now, like from our limited sight, we can see that they've done a good job of raiding territory back. So I think this war is still ongoing. We haven't seen Agartha lose any infrastructure yet. At least I don't think so. I don't think this was an Agarthan fort, but it might have been. But regardless, I think Agartha is definitely on the back foot here. I mean, they're facing off against an absolute juggernaut. So, in terms of resources and size, like I don't think there's any way that Agartha wins this without outside help. But they are at least making a fight out of it. So yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 58.